Hello, welcome back to Meraki Unboxed. My name is Simon Thompson, host of the show. We've got something special for you this time around. We have actually taken a recording we made with a fantastic spokesperson from IDC, Dr. William Lee, who is IDC's researcher for cloud services in the Asia Pacific region. And we decided that there was so much value in that recording we made that we really wanted to share it with you, our Meraki Unboxed loyal listeners. So please stay tuned for this. I think you're going to find this extremely illuminating. It's really reflecting on where we stand after a whole year of this global pandemic, how the technology is helping us to adapt to this new world, and also, frankly, how we as humans are adapting to this new world as well. So we're going to cover a wealth of very interesting topics that are of relevance, I think, to everybody who works in this field. So please stay tuned, sitting comfortably, grab some popcorn, whatever your favorite beverage is, and take a listen to this. I think you're going to find it really illuminating. So I'm going to hand things over to Nicola Gerber from Meraki, who's going to take us into that conversation. Over to you, Nicola.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Cisco Meraki Fireside Chat with IDC. My name is Nicola Gerber, Managing Director for Meraki, and with me today is Dr. William Lee.
Hi, Nicola.
Welcome, Dr. Lee. Or can I call you William?
Yeah, call me William.
Fantastic. William looks after IDC research for Cloud Services Asia Pacific. Thank you so much, William, for joining us here today.
You're welcome.
And for agreeing to really share your insights from the most recent IDC reports and the trends that you've been talking about all this time. So I'm really excited to be able to talk about it here today. William will also explain the need for organizations like yours to rethink digital transformation in order to capture new opportunities in the next normal. We have lots of exciting items packed into the hour today, and we'll be covering emerging technology trends. We'll understand some thought leadership insights on digital transformation strategy for future enterprise, how to build cloud-centric digital infrastructure, and how to enable digital workspace and workforce. Also, how to shift to a hybrid business by design model, and finally, get guidance on building a resilient and agile future business. So William, with everything we've experienced in what has now been the last year, how are organizations in the region really coping with the COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay, so before we answer that, maybe I just want to introduce you to that COVID crisis to recovery framework that IDC come up with. On the start of the pandemic, that was early last year. So IDC has been regularly doing what we call a COVID wave study every fortnight, and then until end of last year, then we started to do it every month itself. So in this framework, as you can see from here, there's 5 stages. So we use that to actually measure how companies are moving through these 5 stages to recovery. So in stage 1, you can say that is the onset of the impact of COVID. Companies at this stage here are basically dealing with that shock. Their focus is pretty much on keeping the lights on, business continuity. And then moving to stage 2 itself, companies are actually looking more on cost cutting, cost optimization. Okay, business are slowing down. We are getting into that recessionary mode. And then over at stage 3, businesses started to think about business resiliency. Okay, they are looking into stabilizing their financial, started to build business resilience. And in fact, this year onward, you will start to hear a lot more about business resiliency as well as digital resiliency going forward. And then companies that is actually going into stage 4, and then stage 5, they are looking into sort of targeted investment. Okay, so investment is not going to stop. Okay, what they are going to invest in is more on digital capabilities going forward, building sort of to prepare for future shock. Okay, and then over stage 5, as what IDC terms it, is what we call the next normal. So enterprise over here that is fully transformed, we call them the future enterprise. Okay, they are a lot more ready for the new digital economy that we can see. So in that COVID wave survey that IDC have conducted, if you can see on the chart up there, you can see that 2/3 of Asia Pac organizations are already coming out from the recessionary dip. And then IDC have seen that technology plays a big role for many of these companies getting out of the recession. So you can see that I put numbers like APAC numbers as well as ASEAN number. So you can see that ASEAN is not too far back or behind the thing. So countries that we can see that is doing well in the region include Singapore Vietnam, Korea, and China especially. They are the first to get hit, but they are first to recover. We have seen that, China business has, recovered since June last year. Okay, and then with that, that crisis itself, you can see that, there's challenges, of course, but then new opportunities also present themselves. And then organizations are prepared now, to look into new business operating model, capabilities, as well as changing their mindset. Okay, COVID have also underscored the importance of digital transformation. We have been talking about digital transformation for, I think, a couple of years, but then, some companies are really, on the roll, but then many of them are still dragging their feet. But then with COVID, we see that, that sort of accelerate, that digital transformation momentum. And what I can show you in the graph, you can see on the dip there is what we call flattening the curve. And technology, as I mentioned, plays a big role in flattening the curve. Yeah.
They say innovation is change. And we throw around this term, the new normal, quite frequently. What does it look like for an organization in this new normal?
For a start itself, things that, the session that we have here, in pre-COVID time, we will be probably having it on the stage with live audience. And more so, I'm seeing my colleague a lot more on virtual session. I think this is what, we mentioned just now. You mentioned that what we'll cover today, that hybrid business model. Okay. Last year is just the start. We are getting used to. I think one of the a common question I thought of mine is that, will we get back to pre-COVID days? My sentiment is that we will not. Okay, hybrid work environment is going to be the new normal. Okay, that is just one of it.
Almost what we have today here in Singapore, right?
Yes, but now we are still having a lot more virtual session compared to face-to-face. In fact, we can't have face-to-face. But I feel that, going forward, you are going to have people moving between these two delivery platforms, or even people moving between location. Okay, because many offices, like, at least for last year, they practice a Team A, Team B arrangement because government mandate 50% of the workforce can only be in the office. So company have to deal with it. In fact, HR policy have also need to change to accommodate that. But then this is all the process aspect. But when you look into moving it into this hybrid model, this is not a normal way of us working. Even though I don't see much impact on the productivity level, but then for the management aspect, for organization, it's going to be tough because you don't see your employees anymore. How do you manage them? How do you, I'm not saying manage to see whether are they working, but also manage their well-being going forward, because the morale of the company is very important. And we have been talking a lot about customer experience. In fact, a lot of companies invest a lot in customer experience on the frontline aspect to gain or even retain existing customer. But more and more so, as we can see that, at least the start of it last year, there's a lot more focus onto employee experience, because we all know happy employee drive, increase, also drive CX. So you need EX to drive CX. Employee experience, good. CX would be good. So
you're saying to thrive, we actually need organizations to focus on their employees.
Yes.
So that they can drive their customer experience.
Correct.
And then ultimately that is the goal, like how to really focus and listen in to what these customers are going to be experiencing.
And you will see that there's a lot more narrative of that, about digital resiliency, employee experience surface a lot, this year. Because last year is still a shocking time. Yes. Coming to this year, people started to normalize, it's as the fourth stage of recovery. You will see that, once you get to the shock, you started to recover and you started to normalize before you can perform again. Yeah.
And of course, when you start working from home, right, and I think this is something a lot of technology companies have definitely jumped on, as this whole move towards work from home, making sure that the employees experience, in order to deliver those customer experiences and talking to them, and even from a management level to talk with their staff, that's put a heavy load on networks and so on.
Definitely.
And endpoints.
Definitely. If you look at it, let's talk about, let's say, the setup of this employee at home. In the office, they have a lot more IT resources. So when they started to work from home, many of them struggle because either their home doesn't have the proper Wi-Fi bandwidth, or they don't have the device necessary. Okay, and then the next point is that when you start to have your work extended to this disparate location, security perimeter just expands. So how does the IT manages this grow in mobile devices in the environment? So that become a key challenge. So let's don't talk about the well-being of these people. How do they cope by not, because we humans are much more, I would say, a herd type of animals. We need to thrive in the community. We can't be alone. We can't be alone. So how do you bring them closer despite their physical separation? So I think that is the thing that hopefully we can address during this fire chat session.
What do you see as the emerging trends, the big ones for this calendar year?
The emerging trends itself, if you look at it, is I think I mentioned that a lot. Digital first. IDC in January, we always at the beginning of the year, we always like to predict the future. It's called our Futurescape event. And of course, our prediction covers different technology area as well as different industry verticals. I pull out 8 predictions that I think personally is very relevant, in light of the COVID situation. Digital first experience will prevail, And what we see is that I mentioned about employee experience, and I mentioned that in our prediction we are saying that 60% of enterprises in Asia-Pac will start to digitalize their employee experience. As of now itself, most employee experience is dictated by the manager that they report to. Okay, even though we have sort of software tools and things like that, but there isn't that much interaction, especially, let's say you take myself as an analyst. We are operating in a very matrix system, but then of course every one of us do have a manager to report into. But going forward itself, especially when you don't get employee coming into the office, how are you able to see them or even manage, I would say, not just the work performance, but the well-being? The relationship will be strained between the employer and the employees. And then HR need to come up with new sets of guideline on handbook itself. But I think more so, in order to improve employee experience, you need technology. You need to invest in digital technology to bridge this physical gap that we are seeing.
What are some of the strategies you've seen companies move towards, and what's working?
Before we come to that itself, maybe I can talk more about where you want to be first. We don't talk about how you want to do it. Let's look at where you want it to be, okay? Because I talk about that recessionary curve getting into the future enterprise. So what does this future enterprise entails? IDC, we have we come out with this sort of 6 interlocking capabilities that an enterprise need to possess in order to become resilient. Okay, usually we talk about resiliency with agility. So I'll just use these 2 terms loosely here. So if you can see again, the diagram that I actually show up here, right in the center, of course, we want to achieve business resiliency, or we want to call it digital resiliency, which is business resiliency enabled by technology. There are 6 building sort of interlocking capabilities that you must build. First, we need cloud, okay, but more specifically, hybrid multi-cloud, okay, in order to improve the scalability of the infrastructure. Okay, and also to avoid lock-in to a particular vendor, because if you want resiliency, you cannot be locked into something that you cannot move away. Okay. Second itself, because we lack of the face-to-face or a centralized way to communicate, we need some form of a conversational platform. You have seen chatbot already implemented by many customer service channel, but as of the stage now that I see about chatbots, they are not that smart. They are more like FAQ 2.0 environment. But in order to scale the reach, Okay, I do think that there must be sort of a conversational platform that is over there, because you cannot afford to have one-on-one discussion onto this particular channel and then the other one is over there. You need to bring it all together so that you have a sort of a aggregated view of it. And then, as I mentioned here, is that devices. We look at devices have been grown. Number of devices have grown. Business data applications. You will see that all these have been scattered virtually everywhere. And then there need a convergence between the IT and the OT, and the platform has to be cloud, because cloud will be the natural platform to bring this all together. You cannot allow silos of application or data to sit, in this thing without connecting to the world. Of course, when you do that, security will come to the mind, and then that is the issue that we need to address. And then also self-service, because they are not in the office. You cannot expect your IT staff to go to every door. It's just not possible. So self-service will grow in importance. In fact, we are already seeing self-service happening. Work desk, you send an email, but then it is still quite, rudimentary, I would say. But then going forward itself, you need to be able to bring some of this intelligence into the self-service. That means that, it's like a IT chatbot that is going to help the staff. And then obviously tele and digital presence, that's what we are doing now. This is going to be the new normal, okay? We won't go back to live event 100%. Our LC is more of a hybrid mode. And then when you do that, especially when workforce, we call them digital workforce now because they are all connected digitally in a way. Definitely they need to work together, they need to collaborate. Automation become essential, not just communication. We need to have at least automate certain part of it, because now there's so many of these platforms that we are using, and then many conversation is all siloed. So in some way itself, they has to come together. And then finally itself, I think I could not mention this enough, is when times are good, people never change. People will never change. They will just as per normal. So sometimes crisis is not that bad. It just gives us a wake-up call that, we should change. If we don't change, the next crisis when it hit us, it's going to be many times much worse than this. So the crisis, and you can see that in all organizations around the world itself, change only started or only possible when there is a crisis. Okay, so I would say that this crisis brings about that urgency for them to change, which is why I say that it underpins that DX. It brings forth the digital transformation, the resistance to it, even for cloud, the resistance to going into cloud. Because seriously, many of these resistance, even though as of now, top of the mind is still security. But then it is more of a perception than the real thing. We all know that security breach all happens at human level. It's never the technology. Of course, when you started to put everything in one places, definitely there is more risk. But then, security technology have advanced to this much. The only thing I would say that as of now, you will see many of these security system or software itself, they are still quite siloed in a way. So I think that, the crisis, even though unfortunate, it does bring forth, that urgency to move. All organizations should have that, future enterprise vision in mind, and this 6 capability that you need to lock into.
I mean, these are very unique and unprecedented times. It shouldn't really take us unprecedented times to make change, but there are many small crises that organizations face, regardless of a pandemic. What are the strategies you think that organizations can apply to make themselves better?
I think you touch on it, because you have the vision, but if you don't know how, then you're still talking about it. You can dream all you want. If you don't put it into action, nothing will happen. So I may want to just focus on 3 things. So even though there are 6 interlocking things, I talked to you how this you need to get. But there's generally sort of three digital transformation strategies that organization can adopt. Okay, if you can see here, I mentioned about cloud many times. Okay, we talk about cloud as if that cloud is just another IT form, but it is not. So I want to at least clarify this, that when we look at it, cloud come in various shapes and sizes now. You have what we normally know as public cloud. Basically it's shared tenancy resources, IT resources sitting outside your organization, managed by a vendor. Then you have what we call a private cloud environment. And then you have companies that they still have their mainframe going on, they cannot migrate. It's not easy to just migrate. So I want to see that, if you look at this setup, it's what we call a hybrid cloud setup or hybrid IT. You have your on-premise that is non-cloud, and you have your private cloud that is more virtualized resource seated within your organization, managed by the organization, and you have resources that are sitting outside your organization, hosted private, public cloud infra. So when you look at this, first organization need to understand, we need to build what we call a cloud-centric digital infra. Okay, if you can see the diagram, there are 5 components to it. Okay, but you have to understand that cloud-centric technology is more than just hardware. Okay, so I will just talk through that the 5 components that build up this cloud-centric digital infra. First, software-defined everything. Okay, we have been talking about software-defined, and why do we really need software-defined? For basic reason, because physical hardware, they can't be split or move anywhere you want it, or split evenly, or balance the resource itself. But when you software-defined, as what in the virtualized world we know it as, we abstract a logical layer on top of the physical layer. So when you have that itself, you are able to enable sort of a more consistent operation across different users. This is what the basis of how cloud market is formed. The next, you must recognize that in a cloud-centric digital infra, there's this thing called heterogeneous computing, because no longer we're using x86. You are talking about GPUs, FPGA, all these things here. You are talking about a very distributed infrastructure. They are getting towards more modularized, and then we can bring it together in an optimized manner. The reason is that AI has been a critical driver for AI, machine learning has been a critical driver for cloud computing, because if not, how often do you need that much power? Okay, so data-intensive application will exist, or the workload will start to form. Of course, applications now are also moving into a more sort of heterogeneous environment. Okay, the reason is that they wanted to compress this time to value. We no longer look at 3-4 years return and things like that. Everything that we do, we wanted to see shorten the time to value. Projects that's run many years were bound to fail. Of course, I mentioned about AI. Then we have memory-driven infrastructure. The next generation application will be running on memory-driven infra, because they are faster and more efficient, especially many of the AI workloads that we can see, because we need more real-time orientation to the output that we can see. And then, of course, we talk about heterogeneous environment, or even the infra itself. We definitely need an orchestration platform to piece it all together. We are starting to see the trend that, moving from the core to the edge. Okay? There are things that, because latency issue, okay, even if you go with public cloud, not all their DCs is in country. So there's bandwidth issue, there's network congestion and things like that. Latency for certain high transactional workload itself is like ERP system is going to be key. So as we advance over it, we will start to move things to the edge. You take just autonomous vehicle, they cannot keep singing to the cloud. It's impossible. So you need to have computing right at the edge, and then this thing will start to communicate to that main server in the cloud itself. So network is going to get more and more important going forward. And then finally itself, what we see is that maybe 5-10 years ago, we talked about cloud 1.0. You only have basic storage or even compute. And then now you can see that there is going to be a lot more customization that vendors are pushing out. And it's the same as many of the cloud infra deployment model that we see. There's a lot more flavor going forward that you can see. People are bringing out solutions specific to certain industry vertical, and as it's the same as maybe 15, 20 years ago when companies are start talking about IT outsourcing their IT personnel away. Now in this case here, you are to some extent bringing some of your infra away from your management so that you can focus a lot more on the business. This is what I would say that one of the first strategy that you must look into, trying to establish a cloud-centric infra. The second strategy that relates to the workforce, I mentioned about this employee experience. So you see here is that in the future, or at least we are already in the beginning of the future, employees are sort of unbound by physical space and even time, you can see. Because, let's say for example, if I need to fly to US, there's a time zone difference. But now, in this digital world, we're unbound by the distance as well as time. I have a lot more meetings last year than I have pre-COVID. Because physical location, sometimes I need to travel and things like that. Of course, you lose that face-to-face thing because our current system doesn't allow us to have that virtual intimacy. I'll put it this way. If you look at some of the stats that I put up over there, we are seeing that the different work mode that you can see. You can see the percentage over there. This is captured from our COVID wave survey that we conduct every fortnight last year, and we're doing that. We are still doing that every month going forward this year. You are seeing a more distributed workforce. This is going to be the fact of life. And will we go back to pre-pandemic when we have mass vaccination? I don't think so. I don't think that we will go back to that pre-COVID stage. If let's say, for example, this COVID impact is just maybe a few months, just like, if anyone can remember the SARS time, it was like, it happens in just a couple of months and it's off, nothing changes. We still get back to normal. But this is different. We have been in it for a year, or even some countries more. Okay, and the thing is that this is a global issue. So it will change. We will learn to work anywhere and everywhere. And then you will start to see a lot more technology-led projects going forward that is focused a lot more onto this particular area. How do you enable the workforce to be able to work anywhere and everywhere? IDC also have a prediction by end of this year itself. You have 1/4 of organization started to leverage on employee productivity software going forward because they used to don't need it because you have a manager to manage it. You can see everyone, but going forward, people are going to work from home. I can show you another chart that you can see because, don't take my word for it. We do the survey again. Pre-COVID, we asked the proportion, you are having a work from home arrangement, and during COVID, we found that the percentage rise by almost double. This is the AP result. If you look at worldwide result, it's even more. Okay, because this way you do look at AP. AP seems to manage the pandemic a lot better than the Europe or the US itself. So we see a double increase in the thing. And then we also ask this company themselves, after this thing is over, how much of you will have this arrangement? And you can see that of course it drops back. You cannot sustain that number of workforce to work from home. It does drop back, but it will not drop back to the previous. It drop back by about 40% or so. So you can see from here is that when the workforce started to get used to this mode of working, you have to empower them to work in this way more efficiently. Okay, and you must think of a way to bridge them together. What we do in the last year itself is pretty much quite ad hoc, I would say. Some companies are better. I want to cite an example of Dropbox. Okay, what they do is that they explicitly structured their organization in the way so that they can most of the activity can be done offsite, and only collaborative activity will need to be done on thing. So IDC's case, I would say that, we are more, we learn as we go. We learn as we go. We try to manage in a way. As an analyst itself, our job tends to, we are mobile from the very start. Pre-COVID, we are already mobile. So impact on analysts is not that much. But then there are, let's say we take our IT support, our admin people, or people who are more desk-bound or even need more interaction. It's going to be tough moving away from the office. Your VPN doesn't really work that well and things like that, and especially when you have very different network bandwidth going around. We have done video conference call and things like that, and we have very sporadic connection with some people. And then you found that interrupt the whole entire session.
I think Cisco was very good at this, by the way. I thought so too. We were able within days to really go fully virtual. I think a lot of the employees here were remote already as it was, and we were set up to work remote. That's from the tech industry, right? It's our customers.
Yes, and I would say that Cisco, this is your business. You already prepared for this type of situation, because you already envisioned that in the way. You talk about future of work way before COVID happened. Okay, and
we didn't predict COVID.
Yeah, you didn't predict COVID, but you predict that this is how the workforce is going to be like in the future. Of course, not everyone buys it. In a way, they say, we are happy this way, which is why I say it's unfortunate for COVID, but it does push people along and move them into a better way of working. That's what I see.
Well, certainly we feel productivity has increased significantly, but I think it doesn't remove the social aspect of human beings wanting to be together. Right?
Productivity increases because, if once you set up your workspace and you really get used to working this way, you save a lot of commuting time. Just that itself, a day you save 2 hours. So your productivity have to increase. Of course, at the onstart, what we see is that, it's not so easy to work from home. Your kids, they'll say, mommy, can you help me with this? Because once you are at home, your kid thinks you are not working. When you're in the office, you are at least, in that workspace. So initially, obviously, there is a dip. But then as people get used to it, they started to say, this is my working hour, I stay here, just treat it that I'm not here. But once you do that, you'll find that your commuting time is shorter. You reduce a lot on it. You see? And you can meet people a lot more faster because you can see, you started to use online chat. Say, are you free for a quick chat? Last time we got to go and walk over and things like that. So all these things, we started to change. But then, when we do that, of course, with every change, it brings out other challenges with it itself, because you have a lot more unmanaged conversation happening elsewhere, you see. So how do you bring them all together? Yeah, I think that is what we need to do, at least, this year itself, focusing on.
You talked about resilience. You talked about security, cloud, agility. You also talked about hybrid intelligence, using data intelligently and bringing everything together in a simple and easy manner. This is effectively the Cisco Meraki mission.
I know you're going to ask that.
So I'm interested to know, from an IDC perspective, your perspective, how you feel Cisco Meraki is perceived in the industry, or how we could play our part.
Okay. So, I mentioned about this increase in device that you are actually seeing. What I failed to mention is that, when I say device, it's not just a mobile phone or the laptop that you are seeing, but there are also sort of single-purpose dedicated, IoT devices, or even machines that is, in the industry. Things like the point of sales machine that is in the retail, in the manufacturing, you have that, control panels and all these things itself, they need a unified thing to bring it all together. But, if you are in the equipment world, you will see that many of these systems are actually proprietary in the thing, and managing it is you got to depend on that respective vendor to do so. But that apart itself, if you look at this increase in devices, IDC, I think we done this what we call datascape thing, and we see the growth in data going forward itself. When I see the graph, I was like, wow, what the amount of data that we generate this year is already many folds compared to the data we generate for the past 10 years. So you can see that data have to go somewhere. They are not just generate and then store here, because then why do you want to store the data if you're not going to make use of it? So this data will flow. So when the data flow itself, it will definitely put a strain on the network. I mentioned about latency issue. The thing is that this is going to be a vicious cycle. More device, more data, you need more bandwidth, and you need faster. So you'll put a lot of strain. So I think that Cisco's strength here is actually network connectivity. We talk about SDN, SD-WAN. I think that plays up to Cisco's strength. Enabling the connectivity between device, between to the cloud. But once you can connect them, the story doesn't end there. You actually need to manage this device as well as the network. Okay, I think that to have one management system to rule them all, I don't think is quite realistic, because of course every vendors of their equipment, they would like to do so, but I don't think that I don't think that Cisco wanted to imagine that will be the future, because it's not possible. So what I see Meraki platform is pretty much more of a unified endpoint management platform itself, cloud-based, and it support multiple device OS type. I think that is key. Of course, if you have one platform that is by Android and then you only do Android, it won't fly. And then when we're looking at it, it's not just mobile phone. It's include maybe Windows, Chrome OS, Mac OS. So I think that that cross-platform is important. I think that put Meraki a check in the box on there. And having the network game in your bucket, and then having this thing here, I believe that this cloud-based platform are able to reach out to a bigger number of devices from the enterprise. And I couldn't mention enough, security is always on the top of the mind. So you're not just about connecting them, managing them, but then you have to allow access control. And the network access control portion that Cisco is doing with your Meraki is able to allow enterprise to deploy at scale. I think that is key, because when we look at resiliency, agility, we always talk about going fast to scale. We need to scale it fast. We cannot allow that we take 1 year to scale to the level. And that is one of the beauty about cloud itself. People go with cloud, and I can say most use case with cloud is all about scaling, fast, of their existing app. Of course, we are seeing more app modernization that is happening, but then most of the ones use case is actually scalability. That means that you wanted to scale your existing application, because buying a new physical asset, it takes longer than provisioning a cloud resource. So I think that scales is important going forward. So I do think that Cisco do have a few check in the box here for that, and of course with Cisco's global channel network and your sales itself, I think you can reach a broader range of either the geographies, the industry, or the market segment. I think with all technology, we have to get to a tipping point in order for it to show its value. Okay, I think that is where I think Meraki is positioned.
Well, I couldn't actually agree with you more. I also want to round it back to what you said earlier on in the conversation around employee experience resulting in customer experience, and the manageability and ease of use of the Meraki platform really allows them to focus on the customer experience, right? So having this ability to actually embed artificial intelligence, embed APIs onto the platform, allowing that to scale, that really resonated with me today, William. I did say that we were going to have some questions from the audience, and there is actually one that came in that I thought I'd feed right here. Do you kind of answered it before. Do we actually lean into keeping this remote workforce as it is now? Do we anticipate that it will never change and come back to the old normal?
I'm not saying that it will never change. And if you see one of the chart that I put forth to you, the percentage of work from home arrangement, it doubled during the COVID time. That's for Asia Pac. If you look at worldwide, it actually sort of triple in a way. And then, once this thing is over, obviously we cannot sustain that amount of workforce working remotely, because that will put a lot of strain on the management aspect. But we do see that it will come back down, but will never be pre-COVID time, because habits are formed. We learn. We are not talking about a few months pandemic. We are talking about a pandemic that, as what I see, I think this year, even though we are seeing vaccine rolling out across many countries itself, at least if you're looking at Singapore, I think at least we are until end of the year before we can all be vaccinated countrywide. Then we look at other countries, Malaysia, for example, our near neighbor. I think it will take even longer. So I don't think that this thing is going to be over this year. I heard the news. One of the Singapore minister, Lawrence Wong, was saying. He was saying that, prepare for 4 to 5 years. 4 to 5 years time. Now, of course, I think that they are just being overly cautious here, but I don't think that it's a 1 year thing. I don't think that it'll be over end of this year. At least I think it's a 2 to 3 years, at least minimum 2 years. Because this year, we started to normalize, okay? And next year, we have started to have proper processes and technology or tools in place. And at that point, it's already the new normal, the new working normal. When you already invest the thing, I don't think the company will, because they cannot delay the investment, they have to invest this year. So when they invest this year, getting to next year, this is going to be the way that they work. And when they have this way that they work, they will start to realize, actually, we are saving a lot more money than what we formerly are doing. And then that will take root in the company. That's why I say, the crisis, however unfortunate, it spurred a change. And after the change, people realize we are better off after changing. But of course, you can convince them all you want. Without the pandemic, people will not take the step because they feel that they are okay as of now. I think that is the thing that I can share.
It certainly feels like 2021 is the year of transition.
Yes.
So thank you so much for your insights. Is this from a final question, basically? Is there any final advice you can give the audience here? What would it be?
Usually with every chat and things like that, I try to prepare something so that if you cannot follow what I say just now, at least you have 3 things in mind you can think. So think of the 3 I. Okay. First I is interconnectivity, because I can't emphasize a lot that network aspect of it, because your infrastructure is going to be distributed across. You need secure connectivity across them. Okay. Global interconnectivity is important because in the physical world, obviously your business is constrained by the physical reach you can have. But when you go into digital business, nothing is constraining you. You already move past the physical boundary of it. So you must think global. And with global, you need to look for global connectivity. Vendors with capability to bring global connectivity into your business. That is number 1. Second I, interoperability. Okay. This is the part that I mentioned. You have applications sitting here, data sitting there, across more than one cloud. Hybrid multi-cloud is the norm of enterprise, but not by choice. They choose it is because as they develop, what they need, they found that only this provider can give you, they go with this provider. And then when they look for another thing, they found another provider give that, they go with it. This consideration of interoperability is sort of a day 2 consideration. It's like, once I run it, I found that, It's so difficult to manage. Should I get back into one single provider? The fact is that once you are like that, you can't go back in a way. So you must think about, okay, so if I can't go back, then how do I bring interoperability? So you'll see that a lot of public cloud vendors are start talking about pushing open source and things like that. But it is not in their favor because they want to lock in. Any business want to lock in your customers so you can reach more. But they feel that customers themselves are actually pushing. I don't want lock-in. We talk about resiliency, agility. Lock-in is never good. So we are starting to see a lot more more diversity that we can see here. That said, you should look for vendors that have that, to tap on the bigger pool of ecosystem, the cloud ecosystem player. So you got to look for vendors that are able to provide the diversity, in terms of product and service that can help you to achieve interoperability. And finally, the third I, that will be integration. Okay, you bring it all together to run it more efficiently. You need to optimize the infra, optimize your ROI. Okay, you need integrated workload management and governance across this distributed heterogeneous infra. So with that itself, I think that that's like three advice. Just remember the 3I.
William, in your prediction slide, you mentioned technical parity. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, thanks for asking that. So just now I didn't spend too much time talking about the predictions, but I think technical parity is something that I wanted to bring up. It might not be a term that many people are used to. So the prediction statement is say like by 2023, 55% or say more than half of large organization will commit to providing technical parity to a workforce that is hybrid by design rather than by circumstances. I mentioned here is that, initially it is out of no choice we are doing it in a hybrid manner, but a few years down the road, this will be a by choice. The organization will be by choice, and that will be permanent. So technical parity, IDC, we define technical parity is that the requirement for all workers to have secure access to all resource. And the most important is that this, across different devices, across different locations, they must be able to have a consistent experience and context, on this device. And then, if we have that, intelligent digital workspace vision, connecting all these hybrid workers, this is essential. I mentioned previously also, you cannot have conversation in silos and things like that. So you need to bring it all together in a single platform, to achieve real-time collaboration as if that workforce is just beside you. The virtual separation that we used to feel now should not exist. And then that's what I meant by this technical parity. We should probably see that end of 2020. That is where the mainstream, and typically the larger organization will be the one that is going to embrace this more.
So we're almost actually up for the hour, William, and want to move on quickly to some of the questions that have come in.
Sure.
From the audience here today. So first up, here's a question from Heidi. What do you see the most imperative and immediate first step for companies with their digital transformation now? How do we prioritize the huge array of opportunity to execute quickly and effectively?
Wow. I talk about what the vision should be, and I talk about a few steps that you have. The first step that all organizations should have, I believe, is the mindset. I believe mindset is very key. Okay, no matter how good your technology is, if your people is not going to embrace it, is of no use. So I think the first thing is that you need to do that cultural change within the organization, change the mindset, of the workforce. Of course, last year itself, people have no choice but to do it, but many have not really embraced it itself. I think that communication is key. Technology aside, we need technology, but technology is always the easy part. The people's mindset is always the hardest part to change. You can change process easily, you can buy technology easily, but if the people mindset is not changed, they will not adhere to the process, they will not use the technology, and then you will be wasting your money. I still remember, because I was in the IT field for like more than 15 years. I used to work with manufacturing companies, and ERP was like the big thing. All the management like that, the ERP system. They buy the ERP system, and I can tell you more than half of ERP implementation fail, because they can force the process, they can buy the technology, but the people themselves are not embracing it. It fails. Of course, people realize it as a matter of fact after that, and people started to change the mindset. And now you can see that most ERP implementation actually works better, not because the software gets better, but because the people starting to buy into it. It's the same as when we talk about employee productivity management tools. It's going to be the same, because they have to use it, and they have to view it as it's not a way for me to input for the management to see. They have to see that this thing really brings value to their work. So I think that mindset is the key.
Thank you again, William,
Thank you
for those insights. It was really, really interesting to have this conversation with you today. So now that you have learned the importance of digital workplace and hybrid work style, these are the areas of the core of business transformation. So your business and your IT team can deliver greater value by adopting a future-ready business that enables leaner operations, speed to scale, and digital at scale for continued success in the digital economy. We at Meraki can help you reach your goals with powerful IT and networking solutions, helping you, your team, and your business to thrive and become truly agile and secure, like we talked about. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank William again for enlightening us on the IDC IT predictions as well as future of work. William, a last few words that you might want to say before we end our live stream?
Just remember the 3I. What's the 3I? Interconnectivity, integration, as well as interoperability. Okay. So with that, keep your questions coming. We enjoy your questions, and we enjoy this session too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, so much packed into that talk. Thank you so much to Dr. William Lee and to Nicola for hosting that presentation. I hope that you all found this extremely valuable, as I did as I listened to that. There was really some great summary, I think, of what we've been through, and just really reflecting on that and the changes it's brought to our world. Of course, the technology has been around to help us deal with this for quite some time, but we as humans, we've had to adapt to what that looks like and actually get used to it. And there's a journey ahead of us that we've got to go through, I think, to really learn to use the technology to our advantage, but also in a way that works for us as humans. Fantastic content, and I really hope you enjoyed that session. Time to wrap things up now. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope you are a subscriber, and if you're not, please take this opportunity to hit the subscribe button in your favorite podcast app. We bring these episodes to you every 2 weeks, and very happy to do so because we really just enjoy sharing what we do as technologists at Cisco Meraki. We love what we do here. We also love giving some value back to our community. And that's what this is all about. If you would like to be a participant on our show, on the Meraki Unboxed podcast, then please do reach out to me. You can find me on Twitter at Meraki Simon. It's a great way to just ping me quickly with an idea you'd like to see us do a recording of, or if you'd even like to participate yourself. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and we will be back again in a couple of weeks. See you then, and bye for now.